Hello and welcome to 50 State Sports Update, Alaska Edition. I'm your host, Carl Mogline, on the second episode of this new show. Just to start out the show, talking about the social network connections to this show and myself. First, you can find me at Carl_PM on Twitter, and it is Carl with a K to clear that up. Seems important. Carl with a K, Carl with a C. Large difference. Alright, also, the page 50 State Sports Update should be up by the end of the day, so please like that page when it is up on Facebook. Just search 50 State Sports Update and it should come up easy enough. Alright, now getting to the show, talking about Alaska. Alright, Alaska sports is a little different than a lot of state sports. Alaska is a place where ice hockey is the biggest thing, and where the college football season, the high school football season starts in mid-August before even summer break is over. It's a very different land, and I'm going to start off by just talking about a few famous sports people from Alaska. Then I'm going to go into a couple of the major colleges and their ice hockey teams, and then talk about the Iditarod, which is, I'll get into it. Alright, but we will start with our first item of business today. Famous sports people from Alaska. Alright, Carlos Boozer. He's the power forward for the NBA's Chicago Bulls, and he was an All-American when he was playing high school, and in Juneau, which is a city, it's the capital of Alaska, kind of down south in Alaska terms. And he went and was outstanding at Duke. He led them to a national championship, and he was picked 35th overall by the Cleveland Cavaliers, and of course now is one of the best players on the Chicago Bulls. Alright, another current pro sports player from Alaska. This is Scott Gomez. He's from Anchorage. He went to East Anchorage High, and he's a center for the San Jose Sharks. He was drafted 27th overall in the 1998 NHL entry draft, and he was the first Latino player in the NHL. He's a Latino Alaskan. All the diversity. He won the Calder Trophy as the league's Rookie of the Year in 2000, and during the 2004-2005 NHL lockout, he played for the ECHL's Alaska Aces, a team I'll get to later. And he was also a member of the U.S. men's hockey team at the 2006 Winter Olympics. And of course, if you listen to In the Crease with Carl Mogline, you'll know about all his contract stuff and how the Montreal Canadiens ended up buying out his contract. He ended up signing with the Sharks, and it looks as though he will re-sign with them. Alright, another famous sports person from this state, and these are all current sports people in the major sports. I did not include any people who are in skiing and Iditarod running. I felt like this is about the major sports, so we'll talk about those. Alright, Chris Cooper. He's a offensive guard. He plays right guard for the Broncos, and he's in the NFL. Alright, then you got Brandon Dubinsky, a center for the New York Rangers. He was a second-round choice, 60th overall in the 2004 entry draft. He's had a good career so far. Had a really good rookie season where he had over 30 points up, and so it was a good season for him. Then you got, and that was back in 2008. He has been outstanding for the Rangers for a long time now. Then you got Matt Carle. He won the Hobie Baker Award as the best college player. He's been with a few teams, including the Sharks and the Flyers. All right, and then you have Mario Chalmers, he's from Anchorage. He went through school in Anchorage, and he was a former guard on the University of Kansas basketball team, and he's now the starting point guard for the NBA champion Miami Heat. So, of course, a great career for him, and it's interesting how basketball has the similar season as hockey, the winter season, yet there are more famous basketball players from Alaska than, say, baseball players, where there's, I believe, no current baseball players who are from Alaska. There are a couple former ones, and there are a couple football players, but they're long and far between, because in Alaska, football in general is just not a very popular sport. Alright, getting on to the most important sport in Alaska, hockey, and we're going to talk about the Alaska Aces, Alaska's minor team in the ECHL. They are not affiliated with any team. Most of the teams in the ECHL are affiliated with someone, but they are an independent team. They were founded as a semi-pro team in '89. They joined the West Coast Hockey League in 1995, and as the Anchorage Aces back then. And when they merged in with the ECHL, basically the Tier 3 league, the third down under the AHL and the NHL, they joined that in '04 and are now part of that league. And they, as I said, they have no affiliates, but they have had great success in this program. They won championships in the ECHL in 2006 and 2011. That's the Kelly Cup, and they won the Brabham Cup for the best record in the league this last year, but they did lose in the conference semifinals to the Stockton Thunder in 6 games this year. But they have been one of the most successful ECHL teams since they joined that league. Just a great team for them. And of course, a big story was when Scott Gomez, during the NHL lockout, ended up playing for this team. He was the most valuable player of the ECHL as they went on to win that. So that was a big story because he went home to play for this team. Alright, now moving on to college hockey. There are currently 2 college hockey teams playing in the Division I of the NCAA, and those 2 teams are Alaska Fairbanks and Alaska Anchorage. I will start with Alaska Fairbanks. Alaska Fairbanks, they are the Nanooks. It comes from Inuit, and they've been a long-time Division I member. 1932 is when their team started. But then they had to drop down to D2. Division II hockey, of course, has come in and out, so teams have gone up and down from there. And they were 72 and 85. Through 72 and 85, they were in Division II. And since then, they have been in Division I, but they've only made one Division I tournament. And in 2010, which is not a great time for them. And they are now going to join the West Coast Hockey Association, which is picking up a bunch of teams as a bunch of Big Ten teams leave, because the Big Ten is actually forming a full-on hockey conference, the first one of the main conferences for other sports to actually do that, to form a hockey conference. Alright, now moving on to Alaska Anchorage. They are the Seawolves. They are most likely a better team than Fairbanks, although recently they have not been. They had NCAA tournament appearances in 1990, 1991, and 1992, but they have not made it since, and they have been absolutely disastrous. Last year, they played, in 36 games played, they had 4 wins, and then versus 25 losses and 7 ties. They had 67 goals for, which is less than 2 a game, and they allowed 133 goals against, which is just outstandingly high. That's about 4 goals a game, and they had a minus 66 goal differential. Not a good season for them, but now they'll be back in the same conference as Fairbanks, and they can both lose a lot because they're both not wonderful teams, mainly because players don't always come, to play at them. They don't have quite the, I'm not going to say talent, but just less players want to come to Alaska. You have mostly Alaska players and some players from British Columbia. Many Canadians do play American college hockey, so they do get players from British Columbia and such like that. But, a school like Minnesota can take players from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, all those great hockey states. So it's a much easier time for them. Alaskan teams just don't have it as easily. Another thing to note about Alaska Fairbanks, they hosted something called the Great Alaskan Shootout, which was a basketball tournament, a preseason tournament, kind of like the Atlantis tournament or the Maui tournament. It was a big tournament for a while, but since then has ended up dropping out of prominence and hosts semi-okay teams. It has not been a prominent tournament for a very long time. Alright, now getting on to our main story of today, the Iditarod sled dog race. This is part of Alaskan tradition now, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. It's an annual long-distance sled dog race in early March from Anchorage, Alaska to Nome. Mushers and a team of 16 dogs, of which at least 6 must be in the tow line at the finish line, which shows how tough this is. It covers a distance in roughly 9 to 15 days or more. The first few were completed in 20 days. This is an outstandingly grueling thing. The Iditarod began in 1973 as an event to test the best sled dog mushers and the teams, but evolved in today's highly competitive race. The current fastest winning time record was set in 2011 by John Baker with a time of 8 days, 19 hours, 46 minutes, and 39 seconds. Absolutely incredible. And as of 2012, Dallas Seavey is the youngest musher to win the race. Seavey is a third generation in his family to race in the race. Dallas's grandfather was one of the organizers of the first race, and Dallas's father was the 2004 and the most recent 2013 winner. His second race win on March 13th, 2013 at the age of 53 made Mitch Seavey the oldest person to ever win the race. Outstanding for him. And of course, a very long line and definitely kind of the Iditarod's royal family, if they had one. Alright, teams frequently race through blizzards, causing whiteout conditions, sub-zero temperatures, and gale force winds, which can cause the wind chill to reach minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That is very, very cold. Minus 73 degrees Celsius, if you convert that. A ceremonial start occurs in the city of Anchorage, of course, Alaska's main city, and is followed by the official restart in Willow, a city in the south-central region of the state. The trail runs up from Willow up the rainy pass of the Alaska Range in the sparsely populated interior, then along the shore of the Bering Sea, finally reaching Nome in western Alaska. This basically just runs up northwest-ish. It's a pretty northerly trip if you can look at a map, and you can find much information on this if you just look up Iditarod, and there's a great piece written about by the Iditarod. I don't know exactly what they are, but they're the organization that runs it, and they have a great piece on their website, so go Google that. The trail is through a harsh landscape of tundra, forest, over hills and mountain passes, and across rivers. While the start is in Anchorage, is in the middle of a large urban area. Most of the route passes through widely separated towns and villages, and it's small settlements of, indigenous people. The Iditarod is regarded as a symbolic link to the early history of the state and is connected to many traditions commemorating the legacy of dog mushing. This race is the most popular sporting event in Alaska. The top mushers and their teams of the dogs are local celebrities. This popularity is credited with the resurgence of recreational mushing in the state since the 1970s. While the yearly field of more than 50 mushers and about 1,000 dogs is still largely Alaska, competitors from 14 countries have competed in the event, including the Swiss Martin Bucer, who became the first international winner in 1992. The Iditarod received more attention outside of the state. Before that, it was kind of, just a state thing. When 1985, with the victory of Libby Riddles, a long shot who became the first woman to win the race. Susan Butcher became the second woman to win the race the year after that and went on to dominate for 5 whole years. So, one woman takes it, and the next woman thinks she can take it every other time. Print and television journalists and crowds of spectators attend the ceremonial start at the intersection of 4th Avenue and D Street in Anchorage, and small numbers at checkpoints along this trail. And I really should say how big this event is in Alaska. This is an outstandingly grueling race. They say it really is the toughest test of man in a sporting event. This kid is said to be harder than an Ironman or an ultramarathon. This is said to be outstandingly hard. They have required rest points because these racers want to go so fast. They have to get things airlifted out to them. This is a serious, serious race. It's part of Alaskan culture now, and it's one of the greatest things about this state. This is been 50 State Sports Update, Alaska Edition. I'm Carl Mogline. Thank you for listening, but goodbye.